So the same day that the Destiny allegation stuff initially went public, I got reached out to by Erudite, not so Erudite, or Kyla. She's Destiny's co-host of the Bridges podcast. She has a business with him, and she also was seen in the DMs interacting with Pixie, the alleged victim of the allegations. And basically, she wanted to talk to me about her position based on the fact that there had been a lot of DMs leaked where it looked like she was kind of trying to at least from my perspective, initially cover for Destiny and maybe help him out and quell the situation from going public. So she wanted to talk to me about that. And this video is that interview where we talk about it. We go into the DMs. We talk about her perspective and her intentions. And I questioned her a little bit on a variety of things regarding the situation. So I think the interview will mostly speak for itself as far as whatever people want to come to conclusions on. But yeah, without further ado, this is the Erudite interview. She personally said, "Hey, I saw a video where you said Destiny Erudite. I can understand how you came to that conclusion from the information that's available and the framing that's going on. If you're open to hearing me out, I'm down to talk to you about it in private. I'm also comfortable with you recording it and using that for content. I like you, and I think you're one of the few unbiased and responsible commentary YouTubers. So I feel like you might be open to getting my side with extra context and information." So we're going to be doing that. No word from Big D. But this is, I guess, the best we're going to get for now. I think he said he wouldn't be talking about this stuff pending certain legal action. So we'll talk to her about it. We'll see what she has to say. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll be bad. Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Doing all right. How are you?
It's been a day, been a long day.
Yeah, just to let you know, I'm recording already in case there was
Yep.
any question, just so it's totally clear.
Yep.
So yeah, what did you want to talk about the Steve stuff that's going on?
Yeah, I figured I wanted to reach out to you, as I said, just because I think you're probably going to be the most fair, but it also seems like so I'm only really going to speak probably to my side, and then if you have questions, I'll answer what I can. Um, and I guess like the main thing for me is it's when people are looking at the texts that I'm sending back and forth with Pixie, they're
Mm-hmm.
getting like a very clip-chimped version of the exchange. Just so you are aware, I've talked to Pixie about an hour and let her know that I was talking to you just to get consent. So I asked her basically if I could give you DMs to basically be like, the way I'm getting painted here is like really, really far from the truth, and I don't really know why.
You look
I,
like Ghislaine Maxwell.
I know. Um,
Yeah.
And so I guess I'll maybe start with like the first. So I called Pixie and she immediately was like, "I'm so sorry." And just so it's clear, you can you can text her as well if you want, like on Discord, and confirm like everything you want with her. Like I'm not like she's totally fine with it. She mostly just feels really bad about this. So this was the text that she sent me today, just so you have an idea of like where I'm coming from and that she is like agreeing. She knows that I'm sending you these texts. The only thing is that if there's receipts that you want to ask for, I'm happy to give them. I just want to make sure that I send them to her as well because I feel like it's like the one thing that hasn't happened in this whole situation is like her consent being included.
Yeah,
So I
it's
just
her
want,
story, of course. Yeah.
yeah, so I just want you to be clear that like I'm being above very intentional about that. And if there's things that I don't answer, I
Okay.
apologize. There's just like a
So
certain things I probably
I can
can't
show
answer.
this text you're sending.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Let me see here. So this says let's see here. Hey, I'm still worried for you. Are you okay no matter what? Please never hesitate to reach out. She says, "Hi, Kyla. I'm sorry for not getting back to you earlier. I've just been really overwhelmed with the situation. I didn't consent to President Sunday receiving those messages at all. I feel like they painted both of us in a really bad and untrue light. I really appreciate that you care so much about me and have been checking on me so often, just asking if I'm okay. I don't think you'd go that far if you didn't care. I feel really guilty and bad because I didn't expect things to get leaked like this at all." Okay. So I guess you're just showing here that you guys are on good terms,
Hmm.
basically. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I guess the biggest question for me would be from the DMs, and I did prepare. I pulled up a bunch of them, so we can kind of, if you don't mind, we can go through them in
Yeah,
a moment here.
that'll be
But
perfect. I can kind of show you the context around the DMs that you have as well.
okay, perfect. So the biggest thing for me is that it looks like you're essentially playing mediator for Destiny, so that he doesn't have to directly talk to the alleged victim. It looks like that's what's happening here. You're playing mediator. You're trying to diminish consequences for him, and diminish sort of culpability for him by not having him have to admit anything outright in a DM in regards to what happened in the situation. The situation being that it seems to be the case, at least, that he essentially got an explicit video of them together and then sent that to someone without her consent. To your knowledge, is that true? Did he do that?
So I'm also, just to be clear, I already told Destiny that this is what I was going to say to you as well. So everyone's just like fully consented, and I can again show you all the DMs of me letting him know that this was what I was going to be saying. When I confronted him in Miami in like early December, when I went down in person because I wanted to talk to him in person, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I asked him, "Did she know you were recording, and did she consent to it?" He said that she did know about the recording, like she's aware, she did consented to the actual filming of it, but
Yeah,
that
right.
he said specifically, probably not. Like it was 3 years ago. I don't remember specifically, and like things were open like this, but yeah, probably not. I didn't get like explicit consent. And I said, Stephen, that's really fucked up. Like that's not okay. And so just to be clear, he would say, I didn't completely say, but I read that very strongly as him acknowledging that he did not have consent to give it.
Right. Okay. I guess the biggest question from there would be, once you had that conversation with him, and that was, you said December of last
Early
year,
December. Yeah, yeah.
2024?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys had that conversation. How did things develop from there?
Yeah. So I was notified. So when the leaks happened, I was having like a community event. So I wasn't actually aware of the leaks until I think just like honestly, like a random person messaged me being like, have you seen this? And I was like, no. I still actually haven't looked at the leaks. I have like personally just a policy about never looking at like leaked nudes and stuff. But that's back. So this is back before I talked to Destiny or Pixie. That's when I reached out to Straight Away because I was hearing that it might be Pixie. And I figured if it was her, I was also hearing that she's saying it wasn't her. And so I was like, if it was or wasn't her, I don't really want to put her on the hot seat with like me talking to her and making her feel confronted. So I'm just going to like check and see, because to me, if he didn't even have consent to record the video, then this is a whole different ballgame. Like it's a whole different plan of action of like how I am going to process what's going on.
Right. But to your knowledge, he did have consent to record, just not to share it.
Yeah, or at least consent to have it. I don't know if he recorded it or she recorded it and sent it to him. I'm not actually familiar with like how the video was made. But yeah, it sounds like he had consent to have the nude in the sex tape, but not to send it out. That's what Aaron said to me. And I was like, okay, well, thank fuck he didn't record somebody without
Aaron
them even
is
knowing.
Straight Raid?
Yes, Aaron is Straight Raid, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So you found that out. Sorry,
I texted Pixie. Yeah, so after that I texted Pixie. So for context, Pixie and I have been friends for like well over a year. Like we're not just two orbiters, but we worked in PV together. When I'm in Miami, I hang out with her all the time, independent of Steven. Like we have our own friendship. We've been good friends for at least a year. So as soon as Aaron confirmed to me what was going on, I was like, okay, now I feel comfortable like checking in with her and seeing how she's doing. Texted her and she basically like immediately told me like everything that was going on. And I was like, okay, holy shit. I believe let me just check because I don't want to give you wrong information. I believe we've called a bunch because I checked in on her a bunch as well. It was all over text. Yeah, it was not on Discord. It was all over text. Okay. So December 12th, I texted her and I was like, hey. She was like, hi. And I said, do you want to chat or just have a friend? I'm really worried about you.
She responds, once you found out about the stuff that was going on with the videos of her being public.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I reach out. I don't know. You don't probably need me to read everything, but basically she tells me that she's feeling a little bit suicidal, but she's not planning to kill herself immediately. And she's like trying to figure out like what to do about this situation. I respond, that tells me everything. I'm really sorry. I won't begin to tell you. I understand because I don't, but I do care. And I do want to see you safe and find peace. Do you mind if I ask to spend some time with you? She said, yes. We make a plan to meet up. And then we meet up, December 13th. We're talking about the time. I send her a restaurant. We go against that one. Malua. Okay, Friday, December 13th. There we go.
So
Friday,
you guys
December
met up
13th.
in real life and had a conversation about how to proceed?
Yeah, and how she's doing. Because at this point,
Had you talked to Destiny, Steven,
no,
about this stuff?
I had heard about it at this point, and he had basically like the only thing he had said is being like, "Hey, I'm worried about Pixie. Like, I think she's suicidal. Like, you should, like, if you want, you should probably check on her." And I was like,
He
"Okay,
told
thank
you that he was worried about her being suicidal.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
you
But he
then
didn't.
go check up on her. You meet up in real life, and
Yes, but I texted her beforehand, just to be clear. I'd already texted her about wanting to meet up and talk anyways, and he
Yeah.
just gave me the extra information. She's suicidal.
Okay. How did that conversation with her go?
It went honestly really, really well. I will say, so like part of when I went into it, was I was trying to evaluate like how suicidal, how serious the risk was, and like where she was at, just because I don't know if you're familiar with my background, but I've obviously had a lot of experience with suicidal people. And so like the first goal for me was to be like, are you like an acute risk to yourself? Like what needs to happen? If not, what can we do instead to kind of help you get out of like this place? In that conversation, basically, she kind of told me about how she's been suicidal like most of her life, how she's been struggling a lot. But the concerning part to me in that conversation, I guess, like what more specifically was pertinent was she was actively cutting off friends so that to prepare for suicide. So she was cutting off friends so that if she did and opted to kill herself, it would hurt them less. So at this point, she had broken up with a couple of friends and stopped responding, and a couple of friends were trying to hang out with her and she wasn't responding to them. I don't think she probably wants any of the names of the friends leaked. At least she said, like, please don't give any of the names out. So you can check with her separately if she wants to give you names. But yeah, just different friends in Miami. Yeah.
That's fine. I believe that she was suicidal over having her news leaked. And before that point in time, that's fair. Okay, so
yeah. So importantly though, she had a stockpile of pills. So I asked her straight out. I was like, okay, so I need to know, like, do you have means? Like, how would you like if you're planning to do it? Do you have a plan? She's like, yes, probably pills. And I was like, do you have the pills right now? And she was like, yes, I do. And I was like, okay, that's pretty serious. So we continued talking, and basically I shifted into like, I'm not gonna lie, like a bit of side intervention conversation where basically you talk with your friend, you figure out how things are going on, you understand them, and you try to find things that they feel tether them to life, right? And so one thing that she really cared about is she does care about her friends. She doesn't want to hurt them. Another thing she cares about is she does want to see like some level of like justice for the situation. She thinks what he did was wrong. And to be clear, I agree with her. I've told Steven that. I've told her that. Like I've never minced words about being like, yeah, he did something really wrong here.
To be clear, going into that conversation, you didn't know that the video was shared unconsensually?
No, because Aaron had already told me like a week before. So I was already aware. Yeah. I wanted to talk to Pixie, and then I wanted to talk to Steven to see how he would respond afterwards.
Okay. So during the conversation with Pixie, did she, because you talked about her suicidality, did you guys talk about other stuff in terms of like how she was feeling about it or her recourse? I mean, you said she wanted to seek justice. Was she thinking about a lawsuit at that point in time?
So we talked about a bunch of her options. She was like, she had looked into a lawsuit at that point. I don't know how much I can say about her lawsuit, but basically it wasn't something she wanted to consider for a couple of legal reasons that I probably would let her describe. But one reason I think can be fully public would be that she didn't want her name out there. I think she said that in DMs to Steven as well.
Okay.
That got leaked today. So she was very worried about if she does a civil suit, her name will have to be publicly attached to the civil suit. And so she was like, I really don't want to consider a lawsuit. And I said, like, I guess I'll show you text as well where I reiterate this, but the entire time with Pixie, my entire approach has been, you get to steer the boat. Like, you get to decide how you want to respond, and you can decide that you don't want a lawsuit today, and you can change your mind a week from now, and all of that's okay. Like, all of that's okay.
Okay.
We talked about how she could maybe talk to him like privately, but she was really nervous too. So this is where she basically was like, I can't remember if she brought it up first or I, but basically her being like maybe you can see what he'd be willing to do like for me. She was like, I feel like you really, really understand emotionally where I'm coming from. I did a lot of like paraphrasing of like, it seems like your biggest concern right now is like justice, because you feel like you've been wronged and there's no direction for you to correct the situation, and you've been betrayed by your friend in like a pretty major way, and there's nothing for you to do that doesn't kind of publicly implicate you. And so you want to work with him privately to find a better resolution that you feel at peace with. She's like, yes, that's exactly
Right.
what I want. I want to
Okay.
know that he's not going to do this again, right? That was her orientation in the conversation. So we talked about a couple of strategies about how she could do that. I was like, you could message him. You could go through like other people to message him. You could go through a civil lawsuit. You can take 5 days and just like think about it. Like, you don't have to decide right now, but just like, let me know what you'd like. And that's when she was like, yeah, I think I'd really appreciate if you just like told him where I'm at, communicate like emotionally. Cause she's like, I feel like when I communicate with him, like he's not understanding it. I don't feel really understood. And I feel like you do understand me. And I said, okay, yeah, I'm happy to communicate how you're feeling to him.
Okay. So then from there, you go and talk to him. At which point you already know from based on what Strader Aid said that it seemed like it was shared unconsensually. What did he say?
I think she confirmed that. So Pixie also confirmed that when we met.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And
So
that's when he said to me, so when I confronted him, I said, did she agree to it? And he said, probably not. It was like 3 years ago, so I don't remember exactly. And I didn't think it would be a big deal, but yeah, probably not. So I took that as him saying no. To be clear, he never said to me, I guess, explicitly no, which is probably something that he might take contention with. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. So you guys have that conversation. So at that point, Pixie wants some kind of justice, doesn't want her name out there. Obviously what Steve's position is. Where does it go from there? From here, you kind of start mediating conversations between them and what he wants versus what she wants.
Well, at first I basically go like a big part of this was, okay, he said to me, like in my recollection and my perception of the conversation, it felt like he was saying like more or less like, I mean, yeah. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is a big fuck up. Like,
did he
this isn't
recognize how
okay.
bad it was?
Yes. He's like, I know. And I was like, it's really bad. And he's like, I know. And he was like, he's like, okay, I don't know. I think publicly he hasn't said what he's doing like legally behind the scenes. So I like literally can't tell you that, but he told me a number of things just because like I don't want to get caught up in a lot of the lawsuits in part. And secondly, I think if some of the things get public, it could like implicate part of what's trying to be done from both sides, I think, as far as like investigation and stuff. So he basically like told me what he was doing behind the scenes as far as like what to do. And then I was like sitting there being like, okay, but like, what did you say? Like when she first approached you, I was like pushing him. And he was like, fuck, like, I don't know. He's like, if you want, you can just read our entire DMs. Like, I can show you our entire DMs of, like, what I said to her so that you know, like, how I responded. And I was like, to be honest, I would appreciate that. So
Are these the same DMs that already got leaked, or is this a different conversation?
Fuck, I would need to look. I think almost all of my exact ones that got leaked, except rather than it being, like, clipped up into little images, it would be, like, the entire thing, and, like, their whole conversation, which has lots of extras in it. But more or less, I think what's been leaked.
Okay. And what was your impression of that conversation once you read that?
Basically, I read that as, okay, so he knows that he's done wrong. And when she brings it to him, the first thing that he does is basically say, I'm really sorry. Like, there's no excuse, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm glad that at least like when she's talking to him, he's like fully acknowledging like he fucked up here. Him and I read through some of the plan. I think some of the plan is probably excluded, like what he's doing like behind the scenes and legally. And he also talked to me about the money offer. And I was like, why did you offer her money? And he was like, well, he's like, I know it looks scummy, but I also know she's like applying for LSAT. So I just figured like, it's not much, but it's something I can do to help because she's fucked, like she got fucked over. She did nothing wrong.
Doesn't that kind of read as like him offering her money for some benefit in exchange for her silence?
To be honest, I really didn't read it that way. Particularly because it's like caveated with like, I know that this looks scummy, especially now that I have full context, I realize the idea actually came from Aaron, and then he suggested it to her like, I believe within an hour, if I'm looking at the times correctly, like he immediately suggested it to her. So it's coming from somebody now I realize even that was in his mind talking to her and communicating like what she wanted. And my understanding as well is that was something that is probably the right thing to do. Like he should probably, if she's like doesn't want to go public or anything, and because of that she can't like sue him. If he's remorseful and like wants to take accountability for his actions, he should like probably pay for therapy and like probably her living for a while to like help her out. Basically, like that seemed like alongside the other stuff that he was doing, to be honest, like the right response. If I'm being honest.
I mean, I guess the concern for me is like, you know, Pixie, I mean, in her own statement, she said that there's, you know, I think she said 3 people total, her and 2 other people that he's seemingly done this to. And I mean, you know, obviously it's her decision whether or not it goes public, but, you know, the problem with it maybe not going public at some point is, he doesn't face actual repercussions for his actions, which is like public scrutiny, right? Because, if he gets it in his head, he can just pay his way out of these situations. And to be clear, he has enough money to do that. You know, he can pay for her law school and still be okay. It's like, what incentive is there for him to not do it again in the future if he thinks he might be able to get away with it? You know?
Yeah, this is why when I talked to Pixie, I told her like if you want to sue him, I like support you in doing that. I've never said anything different with her. I think that's like fully within her right. I just know for her, I guess to be specific, she explicitly told me that if this stuff became more public, that was the thing that made her want to kill herself. She was terrified of like family finding out. She was terrified of like friends and stuff finding out and like seeing this content. And she was like, that was the thing like driving her suicidality was the publicity of it, which is why she didn't want to go to like civil court. Right. So then I'm like, what's if the publicity part is attached to the suit, which she said she talked to lawyers, I just believed her. It sounds like that's also correct. Then it's like, what's the next best thing for her? Because I think that she deserves something. But
so what was your kind of
drive that?
What was your kind of goal throughout all of this? Because obviously, puts you in a very awkward position where, on one hand, you're trying to help out your friend, but at the same time, I mean, you're I don't know if you're employed by Destiny, but you work with him. Obviously, he's helping you out a lot.
Together.
Yeah, right. So, like, what kind of position are you in at that point? Like, how are you feeling? Are you thinking like, can I continue working with this guy if he's doing this kind of stuff? Are you thinking of cutting him off? Like, what kind of position is that putting you in?
I mean, before I sent the message to Aaron, I was talking to my husband, like to Nick, and I was like, if he recorded somebody without their knowledge and sent it out, like I don't think I can, like I don't know what to do. I don't think I can work with. Like that's a line I can't. I don't fuck with that shit. Like that's insane. And it sounds like I know recently, like Cherry has made some statements. Just to be clear, I don't know anything about those leaks, and so like I don't know. I need to figure out what's going on with those additional leaks, because like a pretty hard line for me is like if somebody does according to somebody else, that's a pretty hard line for me.
Right. Well, even outside of the recording, I mean, the question of whether or not the recording was consented to, the spreading around certainly wasn't from your perspective. Is that enough to draw a line 100%. Or no?
So that it's not for me. The issue is that what was a line for me before, I was like, okay, if she did consent to the recording, but not to the spreading around, which I'm assuming that she hadn't, then I said, what matters to me is like how he responds. Is he trying to fix it? Is he being remorseful? Is he like reaching out to her to like find some level of solution? If that's like his initial response, that to me is a lot more meaningful. Because it's like,
I guess my question would be like, why do you draw a line there? Like, it's not like he slipped on a banana peel, you know, like he was in one of his goon sessions and he decided to send a video to some random Discord e-girl of Pixie engaging with him. Like, obviously he had to have known that, you know, whether or not he was the one to leak it to the public, he had to have known that he's running the risk of that video being publicized when he's sending a video of, you know, him and another person sexually interacting to someone random that he met on Discord, or even someone he may have trusted, right? Like, if Pixie didn't consent, he had to have known he ran the risk of that being publicized in some way, considering how much public scrutiny there is around Destiny, and frankly, how many people would love to have a video of him engaging in that, as we've seen from the Twitter stuff, right? Like, is that not something he should have been pretty, I don't know, forward thinking about?
Yeah, I agree that like the issue is like, it's not that I'm not saying it wasn't a fuck up. Like I agree that it was a fuck up, and I think it was a massive betrayal of trust. Just to me, like recording somebody and then without their knowledge and leaking it is like a full on, like it's a pretty like sexually invasive crime. Leaking somebody's nudes, I think, is also really bad. to be clear, I think it is really bad. But the issue is that I think it's fundamentally just a more common issue that people do. It's definitely, in my experience, not the first time that somebody has like leaked nudes. I think it's really bad. I think it's not okay. Like when you hear about like guys like showing other guys like tits that some girls sent her, like I think it's gross, and there's a reason I don't look at.
I mean, that's that's. I agree, it's less severe, but
so that's why.
This isn't a bunch of high schoolers, right? This is a 35-year-old guy who's doing this.
Sure, but the law and morals are different, right? In the case of like recording somebody against their consent and then releasing it against their consent is a totally different action to me than like having it sent to them and then thinking it would stay private because they're sending it to somebody else and giving it to somebody else, which they shouldn't have done. Like these are just the intention and everything behind it is a lot different to me.
So is your concern entirely the legality versus the morality? Like, is the morality not really a big question for you?
No, I think morality is a really big question. But I'm saying that basically, to some degree, I suppose I'm saying I agree with the law here. I agree with the law drawing a line here saying like this is a even more severe action. Both are really bad. The issue is that one of them is like criminologically bad and the other one is like, you're a fucking piece of shit.
Okay. So you were okay with working with the piece of shit, to be clear.
I was willing to work with somebody who fucked up and then also showed remorse and was like willing to try to help the person that he fucked over and correct it. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess moving on from that interaction. So where did the kind of conversation go from there once you had gotten his side and gotten her side? You, at that point, a lot of the DMs seem to be you kind of mediating, talking to her about what she wants versus what Steven is willing to provide and do. What was your kind of perspective on those interactions? Before we get into the specific stuff, I guess just overarchingly, what was your goal there?
Sorry, I think I'm not understanding your question. Could you just rephrase it?
I guess, okay. What was your goal past that point once you found out what he had apparently done and you seemingly got confirmation? Once you found out how her feelings were on it, what was your goal past that point? Was it just to help Pixie out? Was it to protect Destiny from the allegations?
No. So like this is the biggest frustration. I don't know if you've seen the Fairy Queen leaks or whatever. I don't know why people keep saying this. They keep saying that I asked her to delete the comment, but you can just read my message. I explicitly tell her I'm messaging her because I don't want her to remove the comment. I want her to remove the identifying piece where she talks about like friends, because I don't want anything that could narrow it to Pixie, because the main thing that Pixie has said to me over and over is the publicity piece. So the only thing that I have cared about by and large has been following what Pixie feels that she needs in that moment, right? Listening to like what she's asking for. There are certain things it's possible that she could ask me to do where I'd be like, I'm not comfortable facilitating this, right? But saying something like, please don't make my name public. Please don't address it publicly. And please like try to keep it as quiet as possible. 110% I'm going to do that. Like no question.
So you say the Fairy Queen leaks, do you mean it's this message, right? Let me just to confirm with you.
Yes. So if you read, I get that you're mad. That's fair. Your comment is kind of confirming that it's them, which they're denying and drawing more attention to there. I'd really appreciate if you considered removing that part of your comment, right? Just that part. And there's a reason that I didn't just delete it immediately, because I'm fine with the discussion of it. I'm fine with people like talking about whether Destiny's a piece of shit. I think all of that is really valid. But what's not valid is like making Pixie's plight worse. That's not valid. And like until she decides that she wants to go public, I'm not taking that from her.
Right. So here, Fairy Queen asks, they say, to acknowledge that Melina is claiming Steven shared these videos without her consent. Have you confronted Steven about this? Will you dissociate from him for sharing another woman's sex tapes without her consent? You said, gotcha, I'm not an extension of Steven. You're not a feminist, and you blocked her. What were you blocking her because it seemed like she wasn't going to edit her comment, or because you didn't want to answer these questions publicly? Like, what was the concern here, I guess?
It basically seems like, so Fairy Queen and I have a history, just to be clear. A really weird history, where she constantly is accusing me of things and then coming to me behind the scenes to like help with suicidality or certain things. And the reality is that if somebody's life is at risk and they need help, I'm just going to give it. I'm always going to give it. And so Fairy Queen at this point and I had two separate interactions where she had come to me because somebody she knew or a friend of hers was suicidal and she was looking for like steps about how to handle it. And I helped her every single time. One of the times was also a mutual friend, like Xena. All that stuff is very, very public. Um, I did a lot of the similar stuff with Xena. I met up with her. I think with Xena, I actually spent a night at her house just to like keep her safe when she was really distressed. Xena, I also did like multiple safety calls for her, where like I reported like as she was attempting like to the police and stuff like that. So Fairy Queen has this weird dynamic where she keeps coming to me for help with stuff, which I'm always willing to. But then she'll also be like, but why are you such a piece of shit? Why are you friends with Destiny? He's a horrible person. And I'm just like, look, like if somebody needs help, I'm always willing to. There's lots of things I disagree with Steven about. Um, but yes, I'm still willing to work with him. So that's part of what's driving this. When she like sent all those questions, I was like, oh, so every time she said like one thing that she really cares about is women, I don't know if I believe her because it seems like she's willing to hurt Pixie to like get at Steven. And I'm not interested. And at that point I blocked her and deleted the comment.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, with that out of the way, I think the thing I wanted to go over next would be all the text messages between you and Pixie that got leaked. Now, before we get into that, I guess my question would be from you. Do you know the way that these text messages, it looks like iMessage, do you know the way these texts got leaked? How did this end up getting out? Who was this sent to that ended up sending it to someone that ended up getting it publicly? What was the chain of events here?
It sounds like Pixie sent it to Aaron, trying to like basically like this is what Kyla's saying. Pixie and I have talked. She's also willing. Her and Aaron aren't talking anymore. But she is willing to like if need be. Obviously, she wants to be as publicly implicated as possible. So if you need it, you can probably reach out. But also, I don't have it because I didn't ask for it. But basically, she was constantly telling Aaron like, "What do you think about this? This is what Kyla's suggesting." And Aaron was saying like, "I think she's being sneaky," and Pixie was being like, "I don't think she's being sneaky." So I think the only text she has is because those are the specific screenshots that Pixie sent to Aaron. I'm not 100% confident. From my understanding, Aaron directly leaked them to Sunday. I think Beckett of Crabs or whatever, he covers all the leaks on stream. It sounds like Sunday got them directly from her. I don't know how Beckett got them. I think some people are saying it. I think it might have been through Smugbug because Aaron's good friends with Smugbug. I don't know though. I have no idea how Beckett got the DMs, and I don't know if Nicholas got it from Beckett or from Sunday or like what the transaction is after that. I have no idea.
Okay, and I haven't seen Pixie directly talk about Sunday or I guess maybe Bad Empanada is someone that people are talking about right now, but I saw her just let me find her tweet real quick. In her thread, she had said something to the effect of let me see here, I've got it. Okay, so she said, if you're a leftist who has talked about the situation without so much as contacting me, you owe me an apology. On top of being a victim of revenge, I now have to deal with people lying about my dating life and further dehumanization of me. I know I shouldn't elaborate more, but I think one of the worst parts of what's happened is learning how so many people I genuinely thought were my friends are so easily willing to betray me. I don't understand what I've done to them to make them want to treat me like this. So do you know who she's talking about here, or is she not willing to?
I'm speculating it's Aaron. I didn't ask her specifically. I would speculate Aaron. I know she's feeling she basically I called her tonight and she was like, Kyla, I'm so sorry. And I was like, are you okay? And she was like, Aaron backstabbed me. Like Aaron backstabbed me. So I'm assuming it's Aaron. And Aaron is a leftist, but I genuinely have no idea. I would assume though.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, do you want to get into the text?
Sure. I think it's probably worth saying because I think people are like the biggest question people have is like why I'm sticking around Destiny. And so I just want to like answer that question, I think, a little bit more extensively, which is A, if something else comes out about the leaks, which is like more pernicious or criminal, the reality is like I probably won't, but I don't engage with friendships in the way that it feels like people are kind of expecting me to, maybe in the public. I'm really staunch about like rehabilitation and like journeys and processes, which means that like if I have a friend who's done a bad thing, they're not like dead to me. I'm not just going to drop them immediately. I'm going to confront them, usually in a way that I think is most productive, particularly if they've done something that I think not just violates like my values, but their own values. This isn't the first time I've confronted Steven on different things. It's just the biggest thing that I've confronted him on. But there's been multiple times, like even in this like cutie Cinderella drama where he started like making fun of her. I was like, why are you doing this? Like this isn't your values. Like this is something you don't believe in. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Right. So I think if everyone just disowns people immediately for wrongdoing, like nothing works. I have like my entire dream is to like work with high risk, like my entire career previous to this was working with like drug addicts and juvenile delinquents, like people who've done really, really fucking bad shit. And so I don't know. I understand why people may be confused because maybe they don't feel similar, and I don't put this on anybody else. Like nobody else has to orient themselves towards Steven or anyone else who's done something wrong like I do. But basically, the moment that I saw like remorsefulness, accountability, and like a step-by-step plan of like how he was going to correct the issue, that's when I was like, okay, I can still work with this person because it's like the try and the accountability that matters to me, not just like the actions alone.
So I think that, that's somewhat understandable from, a friendship perspective. I think that the thing that people are going to bring up, though, is that you guys aren't just friends, you're business partners, and he's not just any business partner. He is, a massive liberal commentator who's constantly making moral judgments about other people's actions and behaviors. Meanwhile, he's got this going on. I mean, I think a big part of it is like, I think this really calls into question, like if he even has a right to criticize other people's character and morals when, I mean, it's one thing to be, to have everything else that he's done before, which, there's a lot, let's be honest, there's a lot, but I think this rivals all of that definitely, in terms of severity. And it calls into question, his respect for other people's consent to, their own news being leaked. It's like, now how can anyone possibly feel bad for him for getting his news leaked when he was doing that to someone else? There's a lot of questions around this. And I mean, even on top of that, I mean, he's trying to be a serious political activist and commentator. And he's, running around, messing around with all these Discord girls, sending, and I mean, this is not, to be clear, Pixie's not the only person who's been affected by this. I mean, there's been Lauren, obviously, in a different way, but he was sending messages not too long ago, that they had shared together, seemingly in confidence, that ended up getting leaked. There's Melina's allegation, obviously, his ex-wife, who he, kind of painted as like a absolute crazy person. And there's this going on. So it's like, there's like, it kind of calls into question. I mean, even people are saying like, oh, Mr. Girl was right. It calls into question his entire history in a way. I mean, it's not just a question of you and him are just buddies, right? You're business partners. He's a public figure. He's a public commentator where he talks about other people's actions. Like, do you think that's a huge concern?
Yeah, but the issue, it just is no longer like, the issue is like, this isn't a moral concern. This is now like business advice. Like if anyone said, do you think it's bad business strat? Probably to some degree, I suppose. Like it's probably better that I diversify and like look elsewhere because he is a brand risk. The issue is that like Steven does bad things. Steven was a piece of shit. He was negligent in this situation, right? He wasn't trying to hurt anyone, but he should have known better. And he does know better. And actions have consequences. And the reality is like, I wanted to see this resolve in a better way for everyone, right? That's obviously like what I wanted. But when I was thinking about essentially like how I want to manage friendship versus business, I basically decided that when it comes to like business and friendship, there are certain things that I have to draw the line on because I want to run like a treatment center in the future. And I like, even friendships can't come before that, because that's why I'm in social media, is to like gain the money and the network necessary to fund that without having to rely on like churches, basically. But I also decided that I want to act with my friends in the streaming world the way that I would act if the public eye wasn't like looking at everyone and there wasn't like optics and narratives that I had to like obsess with. Because I feel like so much of relationships on the internet get monetized in a way that just like leads to this like incredible like loneliness and isolation. And I'm just not willing to do that to my friends. And so like business strategy wise, would it be better if I like drop Destiny or not? Like, there's probably be arguments on either side. There's probably some people would be like, actually, it wouldn't because he's such a huge platform. Actually, it would because he's such a brand risk. And I think all that's valid. But I think fundamentally, the question that I've been operating with in this whole situation to this point has been, how do I want to conduct myself with my friends? Like, how would I treat my friends if there wasn't going to be public scrutiny on top of this? Because I don't know, I guess that's the only way I can sleep myself and like in my mind, like have some level of like consistency in how I treat people, because my friendship is going to be determined fundamentally by like who's in trouble now, right? And I don't know if you ever like watch the Amber Heard Johnny Depp stuff, but it's like who's in trouble now shouldn't be the way, if if I was close to Amber Heard or to Johnny Depp, shouldn't be the way that I engage with them as like a friend. I should try to figure out like what happened, what went wrong, what do you feel accountable for, and like trying to get as much information as possible, and speaking out when your friends do something wrong.
Okay. All right. Well, with that being said, I think it'd be good to get into the text. Is it about time, you think?
Yeah, you can do that.
All right. So the first one we have here, I'm just going in order from the Beckett video, is this one where looks like Pixie says, "Did you end up talking to Steven?" And you say, "Not yet. Coleman canceled, so I ended up not coming in, but we'll be there Saturday. Are you hinging a lot of my conversation with him? Other than what I mentioned, is there anything you were hoping to be brought up?" So is this prior to you? Is this in between when you met with her in person and when you were going to talk to him about this stuff?
There we go. Okay, found it. Okay, did you end up blah, blah, blah? No, not yet. Let me see. Other than what is mentioned, is there anything you were hoping to be brought up? Does it continue on? I'm not sure what's leaked.
Yeah, let me see here. So I don't know. It looks like a lot of it's not totally in order. The next one I have is a very long one, where it's her saying, "I think I'm going to decide my next course of action of what to do with myself and him based on how that conversation goes. Unless if you decide you don't want to talk to him, that's okay too." That looks like the next one that I have. I'll check the Beckett video one more time to see if there's one in between these two, but I think that these are, at least from the video, these are the ones that I have in order.
I'm just sending to you this order just because there's no like names mentioned in here.
Yeah, so the first one I have is, "Did you end up talking to Steven?" Okay, so
these are all public anyways, I think, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. So this is your perspective. She says, "I'm thinking to decide my next course of action of what to do with myself and him based on how that conversation goes. Unless if you decide you want to talk to him, that's okay too. Basically, I have my plans and course of action paused, and we'll choose something depending on if he agrees he has to make up and repent for the actions and wants to work with me to find a way to do that, or if he doesn't feel that way. I don't want to talk to him myself because I feel like I tried explaining what I was feeling and he didn't really understand. I also have a little anxious voice in my brain telling me to prepare for the worst because he probably won't care or doesn't care enough to willingly try to make up for his mistakes, and that means I'll have to start thinking of more extreme and nuclear options to deal with. But I'm trying to avoid spiraling down that line of thought because I'm trying to hold out hope." And then she says, and is this directly the next message, this one that you show, where she says, "And just to not scare you"?
Yes, that's directly next.
Okay. "Just to not scare you, I'm 100% not going to do anything to myself no matter what he says during holiday season because I don't want to traumatize my friends during a time that's supposed to be happy. And even if he responds negatively, it doesn't mean I'll auto-kill myself. I'm trying to contemplate all different courses of action, including going public. And then if I can't take the amount of public humiliation, then kill myself versus my plan before of scheduling a note for after I die. I'm also still looking into lawyers, but I just want to see what he says before deciding to do any nuclear option." And you say, "Can I share this with Steve? He communicated to me he knows he fucked up. There's no excuse at all, and he doesn't know what he can do to make it up. I'm trying to bridge between to help him understand what would make you feel that he understood he was wrong and should never do this again." So, I mean, this is essentially just you guys talking about how to take the next step, her talking about her suicidality, and how this is making her feel.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any confusion. The reason I'm asking if I can share this with Steven is explicitly because the biggest issue in all this is her consent has been violated. So when I'm saying, "Can I share this with Steven?" I'm getting her consent to like screen cap it and send it to Steven.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So the next one I have here is, it looks like it is you saying, "Gasha, thanks for not sugarcoating anything about where you're at. I think what we talked about as what you needed is help removing the video from online, getting the guy who hacked charged, and a sense that Steven understands how in the wrong he was and a plan to prevent this from ever happening again. Is that what you feel you need?
So in between that, what's missing, I'm not sure if you don't have it. So after I say, can I share this with Steven? He communicated to me, he knows he fucked up, blah, 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 the thing you read. Or better, what can I share with him? So I like re-clarify. She says, you can share this and anything you want with him. I feel like when we talked, you really understood where I was coming from and can hopefully explain this better than I can. That is in between. So after she says that she feels like I understand her and I can communicate better, that she appreciates it, I say, gotcha. Thanks for not sugarcoating anything and where you're at.
Do you mind if I see that one that you described?
Yep. I tried to send it, but I'll send it again. Okay, so this is all of them in order, and then I sent the one that I just read. So the last one is going to be, I think it's like, yeah, it's like the second or third one. So this context sounds like it's missing.
So this is the in-between one, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Pixie says, you can share this and anything you want with him. I felt like when we talked, you really understood where I was coming from. And can hopefully explain this better than I can. Okay, so, and just to be clear here, again, you think that Destiny should face some punishment for this? You don't think that this is, you weren't trying to mitigate any kind of consequence for him?
No.
Do you think you were trying to mitigate any kind of consequence for yourself by maybe steering her in a direction where it wouldn't be made public?
I don't know. I don't know what consequence there would be for myself.
Well, obviously, it would negatively reflect on you if the guy you're working with is exposed for doing this kind of shit. It kind of, guilt by association type thing makes you look shitty.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, the issue is like, I guess I'm going to say, no, I actually wasn't thinking about it that much. A lot of people ask me, which is why I spend the time thinking and like wrote in my journal, like the way that I operate with people has to be about relationships and like the things that I value, my principles, not because of like business stuff or I'm going to hate myself. Like I don't want to do all this. Like I don't want a treatment center that helps kids if I have to like buck over my friends and like stop caring about them to like do like that's not the point of this. But obviously that's also my word, so I don't know if I can convince you of that. But yeah, it wasn't forefront. It was something that I just basically I had to like take matters more. Like she gets to do what she would like to do.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Do you? I guess what do you think is a proportional response? I've seen some conversation around how the idea of her getting $1 million is too much, or maybe I don't know, a few $100,000 is too little. What do you think is like adequate restitution for this kind of thing? Just kind of your personal opinion, I guess.
What I told Steven so this isn't, just to be clear, this is what I did Steven just between him and I, was specifically, I was like, you should pay for her therapy. You need to cover like all of the expenses that are like investigating the leak. And if she has any expenses regarding like clearing her images off the internet, if she has to pay for any like internet scrubbers or anything like that, you need to cover all of those costs. And if she comes to you with other costs that are going to be related to this, you need to cover them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The only other thing that I could think of would be like obviously some level of public, like, yes, I fucked up, but obviously that's completely off the table because she doesn't want any public acknowledgement.
Right. Well, it was at that point in time, but now, I mean, it's been publicly acknowledged, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now do you think it would be good for him to make a public acknowledgement of wrongdoing at some point?
If legal suits weren't going on, probably. The issue is like now I don't even know if he can, because his there's no ways legal counsel will sign off on him making a public statement like that. There's no way.
Right.
Which really sucks. Yeah.
Right.
Which sucks for her specifically. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let me see here. I think there was a specific DM that I wanted to bring out. Let me just go through these real quick.
Oh, I don't know if you saw like one of the texts. I think this has also been included, but when she mentioned specifically the money, the reason that I clarify, I think that's like just a little bit down in the thread. So after I say, gotcha, thanks for not sugarcoating, I list the 3 things that she wants to make sure that I'm understanding what she wants communicated. She outlines the problem with number 3 is because of the removal of the video and the guy getting hacked, Steven has to face consequences proportional to his actions. And so I say, okay, so what you want to, okay, so that is what you want. It wasn't clear to me before. This is what you wanted specifically. My understanding was more rehabilitation, but the specific thing you want now, which is for him to lose a certain amount of money. This wasn't like in a judgmental way. This is specifically because when her and I sat at the cafe, she was like talking about the money, but she's like, fuck, I don't even care about the money. She's like, I just want some sort of consequence so that if he like ever thinks about doing this again, he won't, right? I just like want some essentially like level of punishment. And when I was like, do you want money specific, like what specifically are you asking for? If I'm like talking to him like on your behalf, like what are you looking for? At the time, she didn't say specifically money. It was just one thing she thought of, but she wasn't bent on it. This is me clarifying because we had that conversation that specifically what she's wanting now is for him to lose money because that's different than what I had understood before.
Yeah, we got this DM. Let's see here. Need to think about it then because I'm happy to communicate what you need broadly as a sense of justice. I'm not sure what I think about the specifics of money and punishment in this case. Not saying you're wrong. It's just the tone has changed from our previous conversation. So this is you just kind of dealing with her sort of not totally knowing what she wants at the time, which I guess is fair from her.
Well, specifically when I started hearing, so I think at this point we've had a phone call maybe once or twice, and I start hearing the $1 million amount. And I'm not comfortable with that. I don't think I don't think that's going to give her anything that she's looking for. I know that she's never going to receive it. I don't think that that's like a good direction for her to go, if I'm being honest. But also, if that's the direction she wants to go, she should. The main thing is I can't be I can't be the one communicating that. I can't mediate that because that's now like one of my friends asking like for $1 million from another one of my friends. And it's not something that I necessarily like feel comfortable with. So I'm saying in this specifically, like, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable communicating this part because it's now different than I understood, but I was comfortable communicating everything else to him.
Okay. Yeah. And because she says, I'm not sure about the specifics regarding money or punishment. I believe in rehabilitation, but part of rehabilitation is penance. The person understands what they did is wrong, takes corrective course of actions and actions to help pay penance to the victims. So and then I think the following one here is she says, I just want to know he'll never do this again. And this is like the biggest mistake of his life, basically.
Yeah. I'm sorry for using you as an intermediary. I can send these messages and conversation to him myself too. I just feel like if he tells me too directly, it would be emotionally harder to handle than if I heard it from you. But I totally understand if that's not something you're comfortable with, and I'm sorry to put you in an uncomfortable position. He's also alluded to financial compensation, but I don't think he really understood the concept of proportionality of the action since he asked if there were any bills that he could pay.
Let's see here. So we've got this message you sent. Let's see here. It looks like her talking about the idea of maybe taking it criminal, but that she didn't want to do that because the justice system is horrible. She says, starts with willing to figure out what this means to both of us / in a manner that makes sense to both of us. I don't want to cause unnecessary harm or suffering to Stephen. I want to know he'll never do this again. I think it would be the most effective method of doing so, or jail, but I don't want him to go through criminal court because one, our justice system is horrible, getting people to change their behavior, and I feel like it would be overkill, but I totally understand if you don't want to talk to Stephen about this. I'm just putting it off because the answer is either one, yes, I agree with this course of action. Let's talk about what this would look like in a way that makes sense for both of us, or two, no, I don't agree. I don't want to do that, which then it becomes an, okay, now I have to go to court and figure this out. So we've got that. Yeah, I think that's the majority of the stuff from you specifically to go over. So the reason why I said fuck Erudite and fuck Destiny is essentially, I guess in my mind, this is a little too far for me to want to be, I don't know, buddies with someone. Seeing that they sent a chick's nudes around, I mean, you know, maybe if he was like 16 years old and it was in high school, I would be like, okay, well, I don't know. 16-year-olds are fucking retarded, but I don't know. He just seems a little bit too old to be doing this, in my opinion. It seems to be an extremely precarious situation he's constantly getting himself into with his dick, with these random women. It just seems like very bad. And I guess I do see it as very, you know, I understand you're trying to help Pixie out, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I don't think he's someone to be taken very seriously, or honestly, you by extension for, you know, trying to, I don't know, like sticking by him throughout all this, and like, you know, I don't know. I guess it just leaves a very, very bad taste in my mouth. I guess it's something that's hard to communicate. It's a little bit of an emotional thing, but I think that's how a lot of people are feeling. It's just like it's a very fucked up situation. It's very fucked up.
Yeah. I think that's fair. And I think if people feel like they can't associate with him anymore, I genuinely understand that. Like, that's not something I would criticize others for. And I think there are others that are in your position. I just understand. That's just fundamentally like not where I'm at. I'm not willing to for this specific thing. And it's also something like Pixie and I have talked about. Like some level of length. I don't know if it's meaningful, but like one thing she hasn't been asking for in part is to like cut people off. I think if she asked, I'd have to think about it. I don't know what I think. I have literally no idea. But I don't know. I guess the main thing is like I think it's fair for you to say that you disagree with my choice to side with Steven. I think what's not fair to say, which is like spreading everywhere, is that I'm like going out of my way to like gaslight a girl, manipulate her, and to convince her to not go public and like to do Steven's dirty work when it's like that's such a like it's such an unfair representation of me. Like I've been calling and checking in with her like every 2 days. We talk on the phone pretty often. Like my whole orientation in all of this is helping her. And I guess I fundamentally believe like I think somebody like Destiny, who gets in a lot of trouble with his dick and is interpersonally, I think, really retarded, is probably going to be better off with people who care about him and will like confront him on it, but also not just like drop him. But I think if other people want to drop him, like I wouldn't say that you're a bad person for doing that. It's just not something I'm willing to do yet. And like maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be by my words, but I'm not doing it out of this like willy-nilly, just like 2 week. I'm doing this out of like a decently principled stance, which is that typically like I don't give up on people. I think the argument like he's just too old. I'm like, that's fair. It's just tough because I've had so many adult clients that it's like, I don't know, not a lot of 45-year-olds doing a lot of stupid shit. Because like, I don't know, trauma and like problems associated with being a fucked up person don't just like go away because you're older. They just like come out in different ways.
Why do you care about this guy so much when he doesn't seem to care about, I mean, anyone else, at least enough to not share their news around?
I guess because I see actually tons of markers of him caring about people and also being negligent and bad when it comes to sexual relations. I see tons of evidence of him caring about people.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that answers most of my questions. Is there anything else you wanted to say before I end off the recording?
I guess, do you feel like it is fair in this situation? I guess, what do I do about this? The entire time I've been reaching out to my friend. After the conversation I had with her the first time, she reconnected with the friend she had cut off and was willing to go and see her friends and start calling them more often, and basically made a commitment to like being safe. That's where we made the safety commitment as well. I'm doing my best to help my friend because I think that she was wronged here and she's done nothing wrong here. And I also confronted the friend that I think did a wrong thing. But I also am trying to like push and encourage him to change. I've disagreed with him and fought with him on a couple of things about being like, you should do this. You need to be doing this. I don't understand a world where like these actions lead to people going like, you're a bad human being. And
I think the way people see it is like you're trying to mitigate the situation with Pixie because you are financially interested in continuing your relationship with Destiny for a profit, basically. I think that's the way that a lot of people see it. Because obviously you guys have a business.
Yeah, but if that's the case, why did I say to Fairy Queen she could leave the comment up? I just asked her to remove the identifying part about Pixie. Like none of my actions have been about covering for Destiny or preventing people from talking about it broadly. It's been all it's been about is addressing people talking about Pixie specifically. Like I've never in any world not wanted people to talk negatively broadly about even being an idiot and like negligent when it comes to like things to people's trusts in sexual dynamics. Like I've never been opposed to anybody being concerned about that. I don't ban like general comments and talks about it. I explicitly with Fairy Queen asked her to not talk about things that could narrow the scope of who it was, particularly because at that time, most people didn't quite know who it was. I didn't look at the leaks, but when I would like listen to like Reservoir or other people, I kept hearing like, I'm not really sure who it is. I'm not really sure who it is. Even like shout out to like Queenman, even though we kind of hate each other, he had like the good grace when he was covering this to like be pretty mindful of not making it clear who were in the leaks. Like that's been my behavior the entire time. Like nothing really defers
that's
away from that.
fair. I mean, that's fair. That's why, I obviously I don't know if you know this. I had heard about this stuff for a few weeks. I didn't really have any direct confirmation until a couple of days ago, but I had heard about this stuff going on, but I wasn't going to cover it. Firstly, because it was just an allegation at the time and there was no evidence of anything. But secondly, I was under the impression that Pixie didn't want it to get out. And then all of a sudden I'm in the middle of streaming and I see President Sunday and Cope and Teeth have dropped videos identifying Pixie. At which point I was like, okay, well, it's fucking out now, I guess. But, and that's when she made her statement, which is interesting. Do you know why? I guess one question would be, Beckett had an original statement, it seems like, from Pixie, where she implicated kind of Dan Saltman and said that he told her not to make it public. Do you know why that was in the original one, or maybe why it was removed in the final?
I have no idea. I definitely don't talk to Dan about, like, I just have a very strict business relationship with Dan.
Okay, gotcha. What
Yeah.
you didn't talk to Pixie about maybe what she may have talked to Dan about?
I didn't actually know that was in there. I haven't like gone through all the videos today. I've been traveling, as you said, and I've mostly been like I spent the whole morning trying to be like, is she safe? She said, because she told me originally that if she went public or if she had to go public, she was gonna kill herself. So I like spent most of the morning trying to be like, how if she potentially doesn't feel like, I didn't know if she had leaked the stuff about me. So I was like, I don't know if she feels comfortable with me, but somebody needs to check on her to like make sure that she's safe, because like Sunday painted her pretty terribly, which I think, well, she confirmed to me today, made her make the public post today to try to like clear her name a little bit. And this is like the exact thing that she said, like, if this happens, like, I am killing myself. So I spent most of the morning, to be honest, like trying to figure out if there was any mutuals that were like willing to basically just like check on her and make that she's safe, and like trying and like going back and forth with Nick about being like, should I reach out to her? Like, I'm not really sure. Like, I'm really worried about her. I don't really want to make a public statement until I've talked to her and like seen where she's at. And so I spent most of the morning doing that. There luckily was a mutual friend that was able to connect with her and communicated, basically being like, hey, just so you know, like, she didn't actually leak your stuff. She's like feeling really bad. Probably would love to hear from you, which is why I connected with her later. So I haven't spent most of the day like going through all the content on it. I asked Nick to do that. I've spent most of the day like trying to figure out where she's at, what's going on, and then something about like this cherry stuff dropped, and I've been trying to figure out like what's going on there, because it would probably change. It could change like how I feel about business going forward, depending on like what's occurred.
Cherry. I actually haven't seen this Cherry thing now. Do you know what her Twitter ad is? I assume that's where she posted it. Cherry. It's like the CHAERY Cherry or something, right?
Yes.
She said, these adults who are financially tied, business partners, having the audacity to involve themselves, should not be allowed to pass judgment or question the behavior of others unreciprocated. You are not naive. You're not autistic. And she's showing a DM from Straighter Aid, which says, nice. Kyla's being snaky about this. Pixie contacted her and was kind of trying to use her as a liaison. I told her Kyla can't be trusted to help with that. Dan contacted Pixie a couple of weeks ago as well. According to what she told me, he basically said, ask Steven for a reasonable amount of money and he'll probably pay it, and wanted to convince her, and wanted her to convince him to not take legal actions against KF, which he's considering. That's what Straighter Aid said, implying Kiwi Farms there. And then includes some other clips and different screenshots as well in this thread. Do you have any comment on that Straighter Aid DM?
It really sucks. Like, I thought I was friends with Straighter Aid, so super sucks to know that she's just like thinking I've been snaky the whole time. I don't know. I don't know. It's mostly really sad. It's really sad that Straighter Aid sent these DMs like against Pixie's consent to like probably my biggest internet harasser.
Was he considering taking legal action against Kiwi Farms? That's kind of being implied here.
Pixie?
Well, the DM from Straighter Aid says, sorry, let me just send you a screenshot of it. This is what Cherry has. It says,
I haven't seen this newest Cherry post yet.
Okay. It says, according to what she told me, he basically said, ask Steven for a reasonable amount of money and he'd probably pay it, and wanted her to convince him to not take legal actions against KF, which he's considering. So this is implying Steven's considering taking legal action against Kiwi Farms. Can you talk about that at all or no?
I haven't heard her mention any legal action about Kiwi Farms. I've really only talked to Pixie and Steven.
I think
And
this is
so
implying it says wanted her to convince him not to take legal action. So I think the implication is he wanted to take legal action against Kiwi Farms.
Steven did?
Yeah, that's what this DM would be implying.
I'm not really sure. To be honest, when all this stuff drops, Steve and I also have a bit of a line of like, I'm not talking to him about like a lot of the legal stuff, so I'm not sure who he's suing specifically. I'm not really sure.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I don't think there's anything new regarding you.
Yeah.
From these
I guess, can I ask,
from this thread? Yeah.
do you still think that I was trying to make her be quiet despite like me explicitly not shutting down conversation? I can even look through her DMs. I think I say to Pixie multiple times in other DMs, like explicitly, like whatever you like whatever you would like to do. If you'd like to go public, you can go public. Like, I don't know. It's just like,
I mean, I can't really read your mind. So based on the DMs, it doesn't seem that you were trying to get her to not go public or go public. But I mean, obviously because of your
I wasn't
business
weighing
relationship. What'd you say?
Like when you have somebody who's going through trauma, and this is like what I also told her, like, if you're going through this, like, you get to steer the ship. Like, one of the biggest things of betrayal is that somebody took away consent from you. So you get to steer the ship. If you want to stay private, we stay, like, I take your lead from that. If you want to go public, I'm going to follow up with you and say, like, what do you feel comfortable with me saying? What do you want me to talk about? She gets to steer the ship. Like, I don't know, it's just frustrating because I'm like, I guess, like, you can ask Pixie, but like, I can even look for DMs. It's like, the opposite is true. I not only like wasn't pressuring her to be quiet, I was explicitly not pressuring her to do anything except for whatever she would like to do.
Based on all the messages I've seen, it doesn't seem like you were pressuring her to stay quiet. Yes. Correct. Okay. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, this cherry thread seems to be mostly just stuff that everybody's already seen, but
and so I guess when you say like you can't take me seriously, I guess I'm just like, I don't know how to take that. Like, do you basically think that like everyone should disavow Destiny? Like, should he be basically fully canceled? Do you think like, even though I've done like my entire orientation with him behind the scenes has been like, I can give you receipts of this as well from like way back in the day where I was like messaging him, like telling him he was wrong.
I don't know. I guess it's just like, to me, it's like, how do you take someone seriously as a political commentator when like he's unconsensually sending people's nudes around? I guess I find it hard to take someone seriously in that position.
I think that's fair, right? But this is like, can you trust his political content going forward? Which is valid. I think that's probably an important business question for us to like answer. But I don't know like why that implicates my character.
Well, I mean, we work with him. Like, he is the reason why you exist. He's the whole reason for your, business partnership, for like Bridges podcast, like all of that shit is like because of him, right? Like,
I agree.
You're an extension of the Destiny community. The guy running the community is messaging e-girls from his community nudes of other girls from his community that he's like farming, which actually brings me to another thing that I guess I wanted to talk about, which is something I was just looking into. So I saw this post. This is from a year ago on the Destiny subreddit. This is from February 21st, 2024. It says, I'll send you the post right here. It says, Destiny addressing the canvassing complaints just to address them. It says, there's a conversation between Jacob, Lonerbox, and also Erudite and Destiny on the complaints raised by some women in the canvassing event about being constantly hit on by the guys taking part in it, not being able to just exist without being approached by them, which can cause them to potentially not participate in future events. Destiny introduced very early on in the conversation the idea that any gender-centric space will inherently push away the other gender, regardless of what's done to make it accessible. He says, if it starts with 1 female and 9 males, it should never grow past that 1%. Yet the conversation continued, bouncing the idea of Bumble law where guys would be prohibited from asking women out unless they ask them first, and consider telling participants to keep it professional, like in a work setting. Both of them were shut down. Essentially, I guess what I'm kind of getting at here is it seems like this is an old thread regarding sexual harassment complaints, I guess, or weird conversation complaints with women at a DGG canvassing event. In the leaks, there are 2 videos involving Pixie. There's one that's solo, and a threesome with another orbiter, which is straight raid. people are claiming, basically based on the evidence, that at least one of those videos occurred during a canvassing event. The link in this Reddit post right here, if you click it, it leads to a stream where you and Destiny are talking about the harassment claims, and it seems like Destiny didn't want to make overt rules about flirting with co-canvassers. And people are kind of speculating that the reason why this is happening is because he'd no longer be able to use canvassing events as vehicles to have sex with fans and orbiters. This, to me, is tying into this greater idea of like fucking fans is one thing, but like he's fucking fans and then unconsensually sending videos of fans to other fans, and it's at the canvassing events, which is part of his political thing. So it's like it's all kind of wrapped up. So I guess I'm just like, once again, this like leads into like my whole thing about like taking it seriously, right? It's like, what is going on here? What's going on with Pixie? Like, it's not like you can just divorce like these two ideas. Like, this is the political commentary. This is what is going on here. Like, this is all tied up in his content, in his canvassing events.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to go back to like your initial statement, which is like I'm an extension of the community. I guess I don't like I have a podcast with him. I'm not an extension of Steven. I disagree with him regularly. When we have interpersonal disagreements, I handle it privately. I have no idea if he was hooking up with, in fact, if they're talking about Ohio, I'm pretty dubious. I'm pretty sure I was around because those two were working like with me on that event. I'm pretty dubious that it was taken. I don't know for sure. I wasn't there, obviously. I have no idea, and I don't know. I didn't even know that this leak existed. I guess I haven't looked at them. I genuinely would be very suspect that it was taken at the canvassing event, just because of like how often I was with both of them, and then all three of them, like in like public spaces. Pixie and Aaron had like each had their own rooms. Like Aaron was sharing a room with multiple people. Like it was a full streamer house, and the one night that I remember, like Steven, like hanging out like with just a few creators alone, he was hanging out with Jasmine, Jafar, and Irrelevant. Like they were just like talking. I think they just went back to his thing to talk, and I think maybe Lauren De Laguna went as well.
Okay.
So if it happened maybe the day after, I'm not really sure. But I'm pretty sure I would be very surprised. Like I don't know when they found time. If I'm being honest, they were working like all day. So.
Okay. So you don't think it was happening at the canvassing events?
I don't know. I'm very dubious that it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was the last specific thing I wanted to talk about. To conclude my opinion, yes, I don't think that you were trying to keep Pixie silent, based on what I've seen. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, people will come out with some other thing that I haven't seen that will show me that, but that does not seem to be the case to me. So if that's what your goal was with convincing me personally, and probably a lot of the audience by extension, I think you did succeed in that. Obviously beyond that point, people will probably criticize you for associating with Destiny at all, but yeah, I think that's about all there is to that. Is there anything else you want to say before I end the recording?
No, I guess mostly I just like, I appreciate you giving me the time to listen to me. I would appreciate if people like, I don't know, it feels very icky to always be viewed as just like this like necessary extension of Steven. I don't like this idea that if I'm like friends with somebody, that means I'm like agreeing with all of his actions and behaviors. I think there are some things that are like non-negotiable, but I like acting like these things are like objectively agreed upon, and that everyone just knows what these are. I think is pretty unfair. I think the way that people have like responded to Pixie, like smearing her and trying to paint her as an extortionist, has been really gross.
I think, shout out President Sunday.
Yeah. I think like first and foremost, the most important thing, like even when you're making this, is like to just be mindful. If there's anything that I say that you're like, don't know if that will like cast Pixie in a bad light, like I prefer it's excluded. And I guess, I don't know, the disproportionate level of like hatred and vitriol that I feel like I've been getting for staying silent when the victim asked me to, telling my friend that he was wrong, and trying to mitigate a solution for the friends, and then stepping back when that solution wasn't working and they were going to like legal things. I just don't know what else people are expecting from me, especially as like most people who believe in like rehabilitative justice, I suppose. Like I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I guess it is what it is. I'm doing my best to try to live by my principles.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Well, on the recording. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.